This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss, co-host of PBS's Motor Week. He'll take your calls and comments now at 844-885-4677 or email him at radio@goss-garage.com. And now, Pat Goss.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Goss's Garage. Now, let me tell you a little story. A couple days ago, a close friend of mine called me, and she was pissed. On her way to work, someone nearly rear-ended her car. Now, the backstory to this is my friend drives a VW Beetle, which has been her life's dream, and she's only recently been financially able to buy one. Needless to say, she was horrified at the thought of having wanted for years for her beloved Beetle, only to have some idiot run into it. Now, the person nearly hitting her was a woman putting on makeup, of all things, who was apparently oblivious to driving. As my friend tells it, the near miss could have been measured in inches, and she's amazingly sharp about such things, so it probably really was only inches. Anyway, this set me to thinking. So as we've been riding, we've been watching the things people do while driving. Now, we discovered there are way too many drivers doing way too many crazy things behind the wheel. We have seen people reading newspapers, reading books, eating everything from giant sloppy subs to sticky donuts to two-handed drinks. One guy was eating a sub that was so overstuffed he had to hold the beast with both hands, which made us wonder, how the hell was he steering the car? Now, we saw numerous women putting on makeup and men shaving and several things I wish we hadn't seen. How is this even possible while driving? I would think it would be hard to concentrate on driving, but that's another story altogether. Then there are the things that could make a survivable accident a deadly accident. Some of these are mistakes we see on cars that come into the shop. Things like vehicles or various emblems and trinkets attached to airbags, including one real heavy cast police badge suspended over the airbag. Now, I presume that was to give easy access to the badge, but come on, cop person. Can you imagine a heavy, solid piece of cast metal coming at your face at a couple 100 miles an hour? The airbag, well, when it goes off, that's what happens, is a couple 100 miles an hour right at you, and with that badge in the middle, what a mess that could be. Wow, I guarantee you that would probably hurt. Probably the worst thing we saw was on the interstate one night in heavy rain and gridlock stop-and-go traffic. Anyway, in that horrible low-visibility traffic, we could see what looked like the flicker from a TV coming from inside a Honda CR-V in the next lane. As we came up beside the CR-V, it was apparent that the flicker was from a portable device. Now, our Jeep was higher than the CR-V, so we could look down into the CR-V and see that the young girl driving it had duct taped a tablet over the airbag on her steering wheel and was watching a video on it. She probably had no idea that in an accident, which she was distractedly courting and so on, the tablet would have been hurled at her head at roughly 300 feet per second, which could have killed her. The moral to all this is driving is a full-time job, and there are many ways to be a distracted driver other than texting. And for God's sake, never attach or suspend anything over an airbag. In an accident, anything attached to or in front of an airbag literally becomes a missile when the airbag deploys. Many things in today's cars happen in fractions of a second, milliseconds, thousandths of a second. Lack of knowledge or stupid action could also take your life in less than 1 second. So think about it, folks. Use a little common sense. All right. This is something that we see a lot of. We see a lot of devices over airbags and various people who want to dress up their airbag. And there's all kinds of companies out there that sell emblems and so on, emblems that may be more colorful than what comes on the airbag from the factory. There are companies that make, like for some Mercedes, for instance, the Mercedes emblem is just embossed into the plastic of the airbag cover. Well, there are companies that make these really good-looking chrome-plated or polished stainless steel emblems that are held on with adhesive that fit right over the factory embossed one. And of course it looks great, and some Mercedes have something like that from the factory, but it's designed in such a manner that in airbag deployment, there's not going to be a problem with it hurting the driver. Well, some of these aftermarket ones are very substantial chrome-plated metal or stainless steel, and they could really put a hurting on you if the airbag deployed and that thing hit you. So that is something to really be concerned with. Now, the other thing is, of course, we're seeing a lot of cars that come into the shop where they don't put anything over the airbag. It seems that in a lot of areas of the society these days, the in thing to do is to take the airbag out. Now, you take the airbag out and you buy this kit where you can put the some kind of a video monitor or something in place of the airbag. So you can break every rule in the book. Number one, it's illegal to take an airbag out of a car or disable an airbag. And then comes the issue of replacing it with something that you could hit in an accident. So that's a real problem. You also are not allowed in any state that I'm aware of, you're not allowed to watch a video or watch TV, whatever you want to do, while you're driving. That's why on some cars they have what is a dual screen so that in the nav section, the driver only sees navigation or phone or whatever, but the passenger can actually watch a video, a DVD, on the other half of the screen, and the driver can't see it and the driver can't be distracted. So you're breaking every rule. You're breaking the law by taking the airbag out. You're breaking every common sense rule by putting something hard in its place. And you're making it so that you can watch video while you're driving, breaking more rules. So these are all things that we're seeing. Now, one other thing about replacing airbags with tablets and things like that, with video monitors and so on, keep in mind that before airbags, steering columns were made differently. They had a lot of crush zone in them so that they would collapse when your body hit them and so on. Well, some of that still exists, but the steering column is no longer like it should be, or no, like it was. And what you're seeing today is that if you were involved in an accident without the airbag and you hit the steering wheel, you could be seriously injured as a result of it. So consider what you're doing here. All right, when we come back, we have a special guest coming up, Mr. Jon Ziglar. We'll tell you more about him in just a moment. That's when Goss's Garage continues.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
How quickly we forget. We're right back to using short-term logic to make long-term purchases. There's a huge increase in sales of big, thirsty vehicles. Trucks, SUVs, and other vehicles with dismal gas mileage are selling like hotcakes. Yes, they're wonderful, but can your budget support such a thirsty beast when gas prices go back to $4 a gallon? Did you plan on that? On the plus side, if you're considering a thrifty car, you might get a real deal. With so many drivers ignoring reality, there are more hybrid and plug-ins in stock. Traditionally, hybrids have not been a great deal because when gas prices are sky high, everyone wants one, which pushes their prices up. Sometimes so high that you might have to pay over window sticker to get a hybrid or a plug-in. But higher purchase prices mean it can take years to break even through savings at the pump. It has taken many drivers so long to break even that trade-in time came before they broke even. But cheaper gas zaps hybrid demand, and less demand can mean a better deal. So if you've been thinking about an economy car, now might be the time. That's using long-term logic to buy a long-term product. That's smart. Life changes at a ferocious pace these days, especially when it comes to maintaining our cars. For example, automatic transmissions now need regular fluid flushes. Transmission fluid breaks down with use, and although it may look fine, its additives wear out and it can no longer properly protect bands, clutches, seals, and other hugely expensive parts inside your transmission. Bottom line, more wear and a shorter transmission life. Now you can significantly extend transmission life with a BG transmission flush every 24 to 30,000 miles or 2 years. BG makes the best transmission flush machine I've ever tested. It renews all of the fluid in your transmission, not just a small part of it. The BG transmission flush machine is safe, too, because it uses the natural circulation of the transmission. Your transmission will work better and last longer. As with everything BG offers, this is a superior service. For more information, go to bgprod.com or bgfindashop.com.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677.
Make sure to subscribe to the Goss's Garage radio show on YouTube, where you can find tips and tricks to save you time and avoid headaches. All right. Major holidays coming up, folks. Have you ever got to the beach or wherever your destination was and can't find a place to park and don't know how to deal with all this stuff? Well, our guest right now joining us on the line is Mr. Jon Ziglar, Chief Executive Officer of Parkmobile, and I'm going to let him tell you what Parkmobile is. Jon, welcome to Goss's Garage.
Hey, Pat, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, sir. Now, I've got some people here on staff that think that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread, or at least Parkmobile is. Tell us about Parkmobile, please.
Sure, Pat. At Parkmobile, we're really focused on taking the pain out of parking. What a lot of people use us for is the ability to pay for parking on street without paying a meter, and then add time without having to go back to the meter. So you're talking about the beach. In a beach situation, I can buy time and then add time straight from the beach. What we're really focused on overall, though, is just convenience in general and helping people find parking, reserve parking in advance, and then also pay for parking, so that there's really no friction left in what has historically been a very uninnovative and very painful process for most folks.
Yeah, I know and I need to get Parkmobile, but I know that every time I have to go downtown, because I live right outside of Washington, D.C., and the biggest thing, if I'm going to drive instead of taking a taxi, is where am I going to park?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what we do is we'll able to actually show you where there is parking on street. Because a lot of streets don't have any parking at all. And what we're doing starting next week, in fact, we're releasing our new version of our app, which in the DC area in particular is going to enable people to actually see all the garages as well as they're available. And not only that, they'll be able to see how much it would cost them to park for the time they need and then reserve a space in that garage. So if you're driving downtown, you won't have to worry about, am I going to have to circle the block or do I know where the closest garage is? You're going to not only be able to see it, you're going to be able to make sure it's available for you when you get there.
That sounds fabulous. Now, this would also work like, we're not that far from Ocean City, Maryland, and everybody gets out of town and goes to Ocean City. And once you get there, what do you do?
Yep. So we've got, we really most of the seaboard we cover 250 cities across the U.S., including most all the major cities, Washington, D.C., New York City, Charlotte, Atlanta, Minneapolis, Dallas, Fort Worth. It goes on and on. And we also cover most of the eastern seaboard. So Ocean City, Maryland, Dewey Beach, Bethany, all the way up to Cape May, and then down the coast of Florida as well. We really cover most of the beach towns, and we enable people to pay for parking without having to carry around a whole bag of quarters or lose their credit card on the beach because they're trying to stick it into a machine.
Okay, so what we're talking about here, we get an app, Parkmobile app, on the phone, and then we handle everything right through our phones.
Absolutely. The app will know when you pull the app out. It will actually know where you are. So because you've got you're parking for a certain specific street, it knows where you are. You say, hey, I want to start parking. I want to buy an hour. And as you're walking away from your car, you push park, and you now have a valid parking session without going to pay a meter or print out a ticket and put it on your dash. To the extent you're staying longer than you thought you were going to, you're going to get a notification before your parking runs out. It's going to say, do you want to extend your session? And you can add time directly there from your phone, whether you're sitting at lunch or in a meeting, or like I said, sitting on the beach.
Okay, that sounds like an amazing piece of equipment to have these days. How do we go about getting more information?
Well, you can go to our website, which is parkmobile.com. You can also go into the, we're available on iOS and Android as well as we have a mobile app as well. If you go into iOS, the App Store, just search for Park. We'll come up first. We've got over 6 million users around the country, and we add about 50,000 every single week download the app and register with us. So if you look for parkmobile.com or Parkmobile in the App Store on the web, you will find it immediately. And we'll show you all the cities that we're in.
Okay, and I presume, based on everything that I have heard, that it's really easy to navigate through the app.
Well, we're really focused on that. So it should be. We don't have really any complaints about it. Registration takes under 2 minutes. You just need your license plate number. You take a picture of your credit card and cell phone number, so we can make sure that we can give you notifications, and that's all it takes. The app's really, really simple, and we built in as much as we could to take any of the navigation out for you. So things like geolocation, so the app knows what zone you're in, for instance. Things like that to make it easier.
Gotcha. All right. What other things should we know, if anything?
We got a lot of cool stuff coming out, and actually that we'll be announcing next week officially. The other things that we are coming out with towards the end of this summer is we'll be able to show you on street where there's actually parking available. So I'll see that, hey, this street's green, so I'll probably find a spot on, and this street's red, so I won't. The other thing that we're coming out with is at the end of this month, we will be fully integrated into all BMW vehicles, and we're going to be working with the other OEM manufacturers as well. So what that means is that if you're driving, in this case, a BMW, you pull up on street anywhere, you can actually start your parking session directly from your car, and it'll know where it is because the car knows where it is. So it's pretty exciting, and the goal is that I park my car and I get out and I walk away. When I get back to my car and I drive off, my parking session ends.
Okay. All right. Well, I am impressed, and if people want to follow up on the new innovations and so on, it's parkmobile.com.
That'll work. That's where to go.
Okay. Well, John, I want to thank you very much for joining us this morning, or this afternoon, I should say, and wish you all the luck. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Pat. Thanks, Pat. I appreciate you having me.
Okay, you bet. All right, folks. That was Jon Ziglar. He is Chief Executive Officer of Parkmobile, and I have to tell you, like one of my producers here, he swears by it. He thinks it is the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I think it probably is. All right, let's see here. What do we have? Let's see. All right, well, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back taking your phone calls here on Goss's Garage.
Operators are standing by to take your call for Pat at 844-885-4677. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
Think you'll get a deal buying a used car from an individual instead of a dealer? Possibly, but there's a good chance you'll get taken if you wind up dealing with a curb stoner. Curb stoners are low-life scum who buy cars with problems, cobble them together, roll back the miles, make them look good, and resell them. They usually claim the car belonged to a friend or relative, and there's a sad story about a death, financial woes, illness, or other tragedy. If you buy from one of these crooks, you'll probably get a great-looking car, but in poor mechanical or body condition at a slightly lower price. But you won't get a warranty or a good, reliable car. Curb stoner cars are often so bad they only have scrap value. There are curb stoner cars all over the internet, in nearly every shopping center and sitting along the road. Total loss, flood cars are a curb stoner favorite because there are tens of thousands of them, and they're easy to disguise. So when buying off the street, question everything. When was the title issued? Is it in the seller's name? Does it show the seller's proper address? Is it from another state? Of course, always have a shop check any used car and get a Carfax vehicle history report before paying a dime. Curb stoners are crooks who will happily steal your money. So be really careful. I get lots of questions about BG products, many about specific products or services like, is BG44K really that good, or are BG transmission, cooling system, and power steering flushes actually necessary? But most popular of all, do I use BG products in my cars? Well, the answer to all of those questions is yes. A regular schedule of BG flushes and chemicals will deliver the longest possible life from all the lubricated and fuel delivery parts on your vehicles. And do I use BG products? You bet I do. I drive nice cars, and I drive a lot. Plus, my live radio and TV shows mean that my cars have to be absolutely reliable. A no start from dirty fuel injectors or a failed transmission just isn't acceptable in my life. Remember, deposits and dirty fluids ruin expensive parts. For reliability like I demand, visit one of the quality shops that sell BG products and perform BG services. To find a BG professional near you, bgfindashop.com.
Now, back to Goss's Garage with your host, Pat Goss.
Hey folks, big news. starting next Saturday, the 27th, we will have a new time slot. We'll be coming to you live at 9 in the morning every Saturday morning from now on. So 9 in the morning starting next Saturday. Also next Saturday, we will have Johnny Unser as our first guest on Goss's Garage at our new 9 o'clock time slot. All right, let's talk to Leslie, who is in Western Australia. Toyota Camry. Leslie, welcome to Goss's Garage.
Thank you, Pat. I have a 2003 Toyota Camry 2AZFE. It has about 80,000 miles on the clock, very good condition. Just using a bit of oil, Pat, about a quart every 3,000 miles. I'm translating to American because we use metric system here. I'm using Valvoline 5W30 synthetic, and I'm thinking of going to a 1540. How will that affect the VVT, sir?
Well, it could have a huge effect on variable valve timing because all of that stuff works off of oil pressure. And
Yes,
the
sir.
fact of the matter
Yes,
is that you put thicker oil in, what's going to happen is going to increase the oil pressure, which may throw the variable valve timing out of sync. So I would highly recommend against that. And the other thing is, a quart of oil in 3,000 miles is
3,000, yeah.
in 3,000 miles is outstandingly good. I mean, a brand new car, it is acceptable for just about every car on the planet as brand new off of the showroom to, from day one, use more oil than that. See, on a lot of cars, you're allowed a quart of oil every 800 miles. Some of them are 1,000 miles. There are some that are a quart every 2,000 miles. But I don't know of anything.
This car has about 80,000 miles on the clock, so 139,000 Ks as we speak.
Right.
About 80,000, 90,000 miles, something like that. So is that acceptable, sir?
Yeah, that would be acceptable if it was a brand new 2017.
And all that oil burning, sir, how is it going to affect the oxygen sensor and the catalytic converter?
Yeah, but it's not burning that much oil. It's burning a normal amount of oil. See, depending on how somebody drives, all cars burn oil. If they didn't, the engine would seize up in a matter of a few miles. So
yes, sir, I will disagree there because I have a 1988 Suzuki as well, and that burns no oil from service to service.
Well, and
you'll 10W40.
And you'll find that. But you know, changing on a modern car, changing oil viscosities and so on can lead to all kinds of problems, and it rarely, when it comes to oil consumption, it rarely has any benefit. I mean, we get people that come in all the time, well, I put 2050 in it and it didn't help. Well, of course not, because the oil control rings are stuck or whatever the cause might be.
Yes, sir.
So I'm not a big fan of putting thick oil in.
Yes, sir, but my Suzuki from 1988 does not burn any oil, and it's got like
I understand that.
200,000 miles.
I understand that, but that is a different car. It is not the same car as the Camry.
Yes.
Probably doesn't get driven the same way.
Yes, it's only a little 1-liter engine, sir.
But you know, all I can speak from is my experience here in my repair shops and so on. And in most cases, the thicker oil is not the answer. Now, sometimes, if this car didn't use oil in the past, one thing that we have done that has been very successful, and I don't know if you have BG products in Australia or not. But if they do,
No, sir. We have Newlon, Teflon, and those kind of things, and liquid moly. Yes,
yeah, well, I don't know anything about those, but BG Products has what they call a performance oil change, and it uses a chemical that frees up the oil control rings. And here in the shop, we find that a lot of the Toyotas and the Honda, or not Toyotas, Cadillacs and Hondas that burn huge amounts of oil, a quart of oil every 75 to 150 miles, we have been able to do that service on them and bring that up to 2,000 to 3,000 miles per quart.
Okay, that's very good, sir. But just so you know, I have already done an oil flush previously with liquid moly oil flush. So I was just wondering if this oil consumption is normal or if I should just accept it.
It is brand new car acceptable at a quart every 3,000 miles. Brand new car, acceptable amount of oil usage.
Yeah, but this car is a 2003 model, sir, with about 80 to 90,000 miles.
I understand
You
that.
reckon
But
I'm doing okay,
if
sir?
it was a brand new car, sir, that would be acceptable. So it is more than acceptable for an older car with 80,000 miles on it.
Yes, thank you, sir. You made me happy. You made my day, sir.
Okay, take care. Thank you for the call. All right, let's talk to Lynn from Williamsburg. Lynn, welcome to Goss's Garage.
Hi, Pat. Thanks for taking my call. I had a question about a friend with a new car. She wanted to know what is considered a break-in period, and secondly, how long should she wait before she has a car wash with the wax application?
And so on, manufactured because there's a date in there, and wait at least 60 days past that, which is probably already gone. So if it is, if those 60 days are gone, you could do it today.
Pat, would that sticker be on the door or on the bottom?
Some of them are on the door. Most of them are on the door post, the body of the car.
Gotcha. And finally, this car is garaged in New England, where I'm sure you're aware that they use a lot of harsh chemicals on the road. How often should she have the undercarriage washed?
Well, in the winter, as frequently as weather permits. So, every time the car gets out and gets into the salt or the salt dust or any of these harsh chemicals or so on, every time, as soon as possible after that, the car should be washed with the undercarriage.
Got it, Pat. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Appreciate it. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back here on Goss's Garage.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
Life changes at a ferocious pace these days, especially when it comes to maintaining our cars. For example, automatic transmissions now need regular fluid flushes. Transmission fluid breaks down with use, and although it may look fine, its additives wear out and it can no longer properly protect bands, clutches, seals, and other hugely expensive parts inside your transmission. Bottom line, more wear and a shorter transmission life. Now you can significantly extend transmission life with a BG transmission flush every 24 to 30,000 miles or 2 years. BG makes the best transmission flush machine I've ever tested. It renews all of the fluid in your transmission, not just a small part of it. The BG transmission flush machine is safe too because it uses the natural circulation of the transmission. Your transmission will work better and last longer. As with everything BG offers, this is a superior service. For more information, go to bgprod.com or bgfindashop.com. Don't fall victim to "it looks good, therefore it must be good." Like when thump bump you're tapped by another car at a traffic light or in a parking lot. You get out and look, and being a good person, yeah, right. You just don't want the hassle of calling the cops and your insurance company. Plus, you don't even see a scratch, so you let it go. That could be a minor to deadly mistake. What you see is purely cosmetic, but hidden behind the cosmetics are safety systems. Those hidden parts absorb and dissipate energy, and they may have been damaged in that tiny bump. The problem is that unless you have energy absorbers and crumple zones checked, they may not protect you if your car is hit again in the same spot. Most safety parts are one-time use, and that first minor bump may have used up a portion of their effectiveness. Then, in an actual accident, they're only partially effective. For instance, the energy absorber may transmit more of the crash energy into the car and the people in the car. That could mean the difference between no or minor injuries or something worse, especially for young or elderly passengers. Even in bumps that seem like a total non-issue, take a minute to exchange information, then have the safety parts behind the bumper checked. It might save a life.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
Hey folks, great news. Starting next Saturday, the 27th, we will have a new time slot. We will be coming to you live at 9 o'clock in the morning every Saturday from now on. Now, next Saturday, we will also have Johnny Unser as our first guest on Goss's Garage at our new 9 o'clock time slot. So keep those things in mind. 9 o'clock starting next Saturday, which is a time slot that I have been on in other shows for many, many years. And we'd like to talk to you and get you to come join us and join in the conversation and so on before you get wound up in all of the things that you're going to do on a Saturday. So we're looking for good things from the new time slot. Now, one of the things that we just had here was with this 2003 Toyota Camry, 80,000 miles. Now, the gentleman was from Australia, and, you know, cars are cars. I don't care whether they're in Australia or Antarctica. They all work the same way and so on. Now, the interesting thing, he was concerned, he had done the conversion because they use the metric system and work in liters and kilometers and so on. But the conversion was that he's using 1 quart of oil every 3,000 miles. Well, what most people don't realize is that every car burns some oil. Why do we have some cars that seem to never burn oil? Well, that is because of the characteristics of the internals of the engine. Now, most cars, and the way most people drive those cars, as they drive, the oil is burned off. But as the oil burns off, contaminants build up in the oil. So we're burning drops of oil here and there, and we're getting drops of moisture. Moisture is the biggest thing, and yes, it will mix with oil. So we get drops of moisture that replace the drops of oil that are being burned. That means that as you drive, you're burning off the oil, you're replacing it with moisture and other contamination, So as far as looking at the dipstick or the electronic measuring device, if yours has an oil level button that you push or tab on the infotainment screen or something like that. So you burn off the oil, it's replaced with contamination, the oil level stays the same. Well, that doesn't mean that you aren't burning oil, that just means that the level of the oil is staying the same. Because all cars burn oil, and one of the best things, if you can get a hold of it, General Motors a number of years ago published a technical service bulletin explaining why people would get on the highway, they have a car, and the car burns oil, but it only burns oil on the highway. Doesn't burn oil around town. Well, why is that? Well, the why is that they'd get out on the highway, and around town they never got the oil temperature really up, and it didn't evaporate these contaminants, you know, unburned fuel, hydrocarbons, all these other things. The oil wasn't hot enough to cause the water in it to vaporize and be drawn out of the engine, all these different things. We get out on the highway, and all of a sudden, now you're driving at higher speeds, things are getting hotter, the oil is getting hotter, all of these contaminants that are maintaining the oil level, those contaminants, well, they are now evaporating and are being drawn out of the crankcase through the crankcase ventilation system, the crankcase breather, and they're being reburned in the engine. So you get out on the highway and all of a sudden the car drinks oil. So then you top it off and there's no more problem. Well, that's why. Because you burn off the contamination that you get in normal driving that maintains the oil level over thousands of miles. So if a car didn't burn oil, the engine didn't burn oil, it would seize in probably less than a mile. Now, granted, each time a piston comes up, the amount of oil that is burned, that's left in the cylinder and so on, is minuscule. Because if the engine used one single drop of oil for each four-stroke cycle for each piston, you would burn something on the neighborhood of 4 or 5 quarts of oil per mile. So that gives you an idea how small the amount is that is burned on each cycle. But you're looking at millions of cycles. So remember that some oil consumption is normal on some cars. But the rule is, like GM says, a quart every 2,000 miles. Some other cars are a quart every 800 or 1,000 miles. And that would be considered normal, even if the car is brand new. Let's take a break. We'll be right back on Goss's Garage.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
You probably don't think about it, but if you double the life of your car, your fixed expenses per mile will drop 50%. But how can you double the life of a car? Well, that's easy. Simply use BG products and flushes for your routine maintenance. I'll bet you know someone whose cars last a lot longer than yours, plus they never seem to have problems. Now you can enjoy those great savings too. Simply enroll in the BG Protection Plan, and BG will guarantee covered parts for as long as you own your car, in writing. With the BG Protection Plan, long after your car is paid off, you'll still have years of warranty left. Think about it. No payments and no worries about major repair bills. That's amazing. It's almost too good to be true because the BG Protection Plan is also absolutely free. My cars are covered by the BG Protection Plan. Yours should be too. For details, bgprod.com or 800-327-8883.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
All right, folks, good news. Starting next Saturday, the 27th, we will have a new time slot. We'll be coming to you live at 9 in the morning every Saturday morning from now on. Also, next Saturday, we will have Johnny Unser as our first guest on Goss's Garage at our new 9 o'clock time slot. So be sure to tune us in at 9 a.m. next Saturday. All right. Now, here's a question about tire pressure. And gentleman says, I can't count the number of times I'm at a stoplight and look at the tires on the vehicle next to me. 7 out of 10 times, that tire is improperly inflated and the tire tread wear reflects improper inflation. Okay, might be seriously underinflated. You'd be hard to tell if a tire was slightly underinflated or overinflated because modern tires don't bulge like older tires used to. So you're going to have a tire that is seriously out of spec as far as pressure is concerned, and it doesn't show anything. As an example of that, not too long ago, and keep in mind that I, over the years, have worked for various consumer agencies and so on as a consultant to help them solve these automotive problems that people have. And some time ago, a case came to me about a Mazda that had just all kinds of problems with ride quality. And the story with this car was that it was an older gentleman. He bought the car. He traded in, of all things, an old Dodge Dart. Well, he traded it in. He bought this new one. He complained about ride. Now, one thing you have to remember is that some dealers are really, really good about pre-delivering a car, and they check the tire pressure and so on and make sure it's absolutely right. Others, not so much. Like my Jeep, for instance. My Jeep is supposed to have, I think it's 34 and 36, or 32 and 36, or something like that. And I noticed on the dash display that it was saying one tire was 41, one was 45, one was 68, and so on. We checked the tire pressure in it, and yeah, guess what? The tire pressure monitoring system, it was right. Every tire on it was at least 10 psi above where it should be. Now, of course, you could look at the tires and you couldn't tell anything about them. So, you know, one of the things here is always on a new car, a used car, your car you've had for the last 20 years, whatever, get in the habit of checking the tire pressure. Now, the gentleman with the Mazda, he got in the car, he complained about rough ride. Now, why he didn't complain when he road tested it, I don't know. Maybe he didn't road test it far enough, who knows? Not the issue. Anyway, he complains about the ride and takes it to the service department. Service department says, no problem found. Takes the car out, drives it for a couple of days, brings it back, and he says, this car just rides too hard. So somebody in the service department took it for a ride. They said, okay, we're not quite sure what's wrong, but we'll check and we'll do various things to it. So first time out, they put new struts on it. Gave it back to him. He drove it. He later took it back because it still rode hard. This time what they did was they replaced the springs in it. And it went on and on like this. They aligned it, they did this, they rotated tires, they did everything except take step number one. Now that car was ultimately referred to me to check out and see what I could find with it and act as an arbitrator. So I got the car in, and the first thing I always do on things like this, I have a bad habit. I've been in to an analyst, all kinds of things, but I have a really bad habit that I can't break. And that is that I always do step number one first. That meant I checked the tire pressure, and the tire pressure was over 100 psi. Our older driver, what was going on here? And the dealer never checked the tire pressure. Why? I don't know. But what would happen was he was used to his old Dodge Dart, and he would look at the tires, and if he saw a bulge in the side of the tire, he'd put air in it. Well, he was looking at these new radial tires, and he was trying to get rid of the bulge in the normal bulge in the side of the radials, and he keeps putting air in it, and then it rides like a buckboard, and he takes it back, and there you go. So don't overlook things like tire pressure. All right, Chris from Gaithersburg. Welcome to Goss's Garage.
Thanks, Pat. I was wondering, I have a GMC 3/4 ton that I need to put with 350 that I need to put the new a replacement motor in, and I do use it for towing sometimes, and I was wondering if I might be all right putting a 2-bolt main engine in it, if I get a used one or even a replacement one. I go easy on it, but just wanted to see what you had to say.
Well, yeah, the 2-bolt main, 4-bolt main, really, really big deal if you're building a super high performance engine and going to the track and redlining it several times a day and so on. But on the street, unless you're racing, for the most part, there isn't that much difference between a 2-bolt main and a 4-bolt main engine, as long as you use a little common sense.
Okay. Also, would you recommend GM, like what they call a good wrench replacement engine, or Jasper, or any brand or maker or rebuilder that you like?
Well, for a situation like yours where you tow once in a while, I like Jasper because you can call them and they can build you an engine with a cam designed specifically for towing. So
oh, wow.
that would be a big plus. So I would at least talk to them. We typically, for General Motors, we typically use either Jasper or GM. Both are good, but we have the ability to be flexible when we're dealing with Jasper.
Okay, great. Thank you, Pat.
Okay, take care. Yeah, 2-bolt main bearings, the main bearing caps in the engine that support the crankshaft. General Motors, for a lot of years on their engines, they had just 2 bolts holding those in place on the majority of their engines. They had some high performance and truck engines where they had another set of bolts farther out. That is a plus. Some other manufacturers do it with cross bolting, where they have 2 bolts that hold the main cap in place. Then they have bolts that come through the side of the block into the caps that hold the bearings in place. And that's another way to do it. But most of these things, they were born in racing. They thrive in racing because racing is sustained high RPM for extended periods of time and so on. towing up to a point is, but the reality of towing is that in most cases, you're not actually going to be hitting that free revving red line, because the weight of what you're towing is going to limit the RPM of the engine. So it's not a situation where, like in racing, once you reach a certain point, the stress on the engine can actually decrease, and the engine stays at high RPM or may actually over rev. And then these special bearing caps and everything became critically important. And yes, if you have the choice, you're putting an engine in a car or a truck to tow something with, if you have the option to get the 4-bolt main or the cross-bolted mains or something like that, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg more, by all means, go ahead and do it, because it is a benefit. But it's not a major benefit. So, the majority of GM engines out there, far and away, back when that car, that was a 99, I think, it was a 350. Back in those days, I don't know what the percentage was, but I guess it was only like 10% were 4-bolt main engines. All right, folks, we have done it one more time. Remember, 9 o'clock next Saturday. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Steve McMillan and George Stockton for producing today's show. For everyone here at Goss's Garage, I'm Pat Goss. Until next time, hey, folks, please drive gently. See ya.